When you have an emergency that needs care, and you have to be more resourceful in a little to no resource environment.
So you mentioned austere medicine or remote medicine. What's the difference between remote medicine and urban medicine?
Remote medicine, wilderness medicine, survival medicine, it's the biggest difference is spelling, number one, but also it's just how you look at it and how you define it. A lot of people look at me when they see that I did a fellowship in wilderness medicine. They're like, well, when are you going to Mount Everest? When are you camping? Oh, you're dealing with your snakes and your venom stuff. Well, it's just beyond that. The huge thing that I really care a lot about is trying to educate urban providers, nurses, medics, EMS systems, overall physicians, to understand that these environmental issues in wilderness medicine is more than just the environmental stuff. And really, all this remote medicine is when you have an emergency that needs care, and you have to be more resourceful in a little to no resource environment. So I could be 1 mile from the hospital. Geographically, that's not very far into the wilderness, especially in the city. But what if you're stuck? What if you can't get them to there? What if we can't get them out? How do we even find them? On top of that, what if a hurricane comes through or some kind of disaster? Then even a city is actually the wilderness in its austere care. So austere medicine is austere conditions. So that's really hard to handle. It can be really hard on the body for the rescuers and everyone. And wilderness really comes back to being resourceful and little no resource. So that's why I prefer austere medicine or remote medicine, because you're remote from the final care, and that could be time, that can be distance, that can be resources.
So Ben, are there any specific myths that really strike a nerve with you in terms of regarding medical treatment in the field?
Field medicine, remote medicine is full of myths, and we always need to kind of look at science, evidence-based medicine, as well as experience-based medicine. One of our biggest enemies to be able to take good care of each other is the notion that, well, this is how it's always been done, or this is what I was taught, and change. In fact, one of my favorite slogans is screw status quo. It's not as PC, the usual part of it, but we have to grow. Just because it's been that way for a long time doesn't mean it's the only way. So that comes with things like you need to keep a snake bite down. You need to pee on or urinate on marine envenomation. Oh, we have to bring the snake in to be able to identify it. All absolutely false. No tourniquets, no cutting, no sucking, no extractions. Those commercial kits should not be allowed to be sold because they're not proper medical devices. And at first it made sense, great, and I appreciate the thought process behind it. However, we've proven that it actually causes more damage than just not even treating it. And so we got to stop doing some of those things. In terms of, how much we need to splint it, look at the whole history behind backboards and immobilization. In fact, one of the biggest myths that I battle is the notion that we have to fully immobilize someone. There's never a case where somebody should be fully immobilized, ever. Maybe spinal motion restriction, maybe, but not full body mobilization against a smooth blackboard, or backboard rather, because our spine isn't straight, and especially after trauma, it's not going to be straight. So why do we kind of do those things? So those are some of the biggest myths that we kind of have to continuously battle. And people will teach what they've learned. People will teach and practice what they're comfortable with. And it's hard to make change. So we have to be okay with getting rid of status quo and always questioning ourselves and kind of questioning in a professional and meaningful way to go back and change what we need to do. Mm-hmm. That's why, even textbooks, right? If it goes through all the editors and publishings, any textbook, by the time it's out, technically usually is about 5 years behind at least. You have to come up with the idea. You have to have publishers that are going to be okay with it. You have to have the experts to write the chapters. Then it goes to the editors. Then it goes back. Then it goes back and forth. And we do all the things and the spell checks and everything. Pick the graphics. Take your headshots. Do all these things. And then it goes to the print shop. And then it's printed. And then distributed. And then it gets online. And then you could order it. Then it gets delivered. Then you can read it. And by the time, that's on average about 5 to 7 years. So all these medical textbooks are really delayed. On top of that, you have people that they don't really look at what their sources are. So for years, we were quoting trauma care based on full spinal mobilization, and all that started with a letter to the editor. There was no research that went into using backboards and full mobilization, but it became standard of care. And so we've been looking the past 15 plus years, is the best thing to do. And we've been realizing that we have a lot of problems with it. So that's why you see a lot of us go away from it. There are already places that are getting away from even using C-collars.